So here's a question. Could the really bizarre rules of quantum physics actually be the secret ingredient that powers life itself?
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it?
Yeah, because think about it. In our daily lives, everything seems pretty predictable. Classical physics, right?
Yeah.
Objects have definite places, definite speed.
Exactly. Apples fall down, balls roll predictably. But when you zoom way, way down to the quantum level, things get weird, really weird.
And that's what we're diving into today, isn't it? This idea that maybe life uses that weirdness.
Precisely. We're exploring quantum biology, this emerging field, looking at how things like wave-particle duality, tunneling, superposition, even entanglement, how these strange quantum effects might be crucial tools for living things.
Tools. So like a robin navigating using entanglement, or plants being super efficient at photosynthesis because of quantum coherence.
That's the kind of thing we're talking about. And maybe even, our sense of smell or how enzymes work so well.
It really makes you wonder if life is just, well, weirder and maybe a lot smarter than we give it credit for.
Absolutely. I mean, just look at the natural world. A bird migrating thousands of miles with pinpoint accuracy, an ant lifting many times its own weight, an eel generating electricity.
Yeah, incredible feats.
Are these all just down to standard chemistry and biology? Or is there something deeper, some quantum advantage that life has figured out how to exploit?
It sounds almost like science fiction, though. And I guess when these ideas first came up, scientists were pretty skeptical, right?
Oh, definitely. Big skepticism. Because, quantum effects are usually studied in very controlled, very cold, isolated conditions.
And life is.
Well, not that.
Not at all. Life is, as they say, hot, wet, and messy. It's complex, dynamic, full of jiggling molecules. So the big question was, and still is, to some extent, how could these incredibly delicate quantum states possibly survive in a living cell long enough to actually do anything useful?
That seems like a huge hurdle.
It is. But the evidence is building up. It seems life might just have found ways, ingenious ways, to protect or even harness these quantum phenomena. Okay, so before we get into the biology, maybe we should quickly recap some of these quantum concepts, just to get our heads around them.
Good idea. Let's start with wave-particle duality.
Right. Things aren't just waves or just particles. They could be both.
Exactly. Light's the classic example. Sometimes it acts like a wave, spreading out, interfering. Other times it acts like a stream of particles, photons. But it's not just light. Electrons, atoms, even small molecules can do this. They have this dual nature.
And that famous experiment, the two-slit experiment, shows this.
That's the one. You fire electrons one by one at a barrier with two slits. If they were just particles, you'd expect two bands on the screen behind.
Like spray paint through a stencil.
Right. But what you actually get is an interference pattern, loads of bands, like waves overlapping. It means each electron somehow goes through both slits at once, like a wave, and interferes with itself.
Okay, that's fundamentally weird. Each electron goes through both.
Until you try to detect which slit it went through, then it behaves like a particle again.
It's good. Yeah, it's weird. Probability waves. All right. What about tunneling? That sounds like walking through walls.
It's sort of like that, but for energy barriers. Classically, if you don't have enough energy to get over a hill, you can't. End of story.
Makes sense.
But quantum mechanically, a particle, like an electron or proton, has a chance, a non-zero probability, of just appearing on the other side of that energy barrier, even if it doesn't have enough energy to climb over it. It tunnels through.
Like a ghost.
Kind of. And it's not just theoretical, it's essential. Nuclear fusion in the sun, the reason it shines.
Yeah.
That depends on protons tunneling through the electrical repulsion barrier between them. So tunneling is pretty fundamental to life existing at all.
Wow, okay. So we rely on tunneling for sunlight. What's next? Superposition.
Superposition. This is the idea that a quantum system can be in multiple states simultaneously until you measure it.
Like an electron spinning both up and down at the same time.
Exactly like that. Before you measure its spin, it's not definitively up or down. It's in a superposition of both possibilities. It's only the act of measurement that forces it to choose one state. Reality at that level is sort of fuzzy, probabilistic until observed.
Fuzzy reality until we look.
Oh, okay.
And entanglement. Einstein's spooky action at a distance.
Entanglement. Maybe the weirdest of the lot. You link two particles quantum mechanically, so they share the same fate, the same existence, in a way.
Linked how?
Well, their properties become correlated. If you measure, say, the spin of one, you instantly know the spin of the other. No matter how far apart they are, miles, light years, doesn't matter.
Instantly.
Faster than light. It seems like it, but you can't actually use it to send information faster than light. It's more like they're described by one single quantum state, even when separated. It's a deep, non-local connection. Spooky, right?
Definitely spooky. Linked fates across the cosmos.
Yeah.
Okay, last one. Quantization. Energy comes in packets.
Yeah, discrete chunks or quanta. Think of a guitar string. It can only vibrate at specific frequencies to produce specific notes, right? You can't get a note between E and F on the same string position.
Right, because the frets are just the physics of the string.
Exactly. Quantum systems are similar. Electrons in an atom can only have specific, discrete energy levels. They can jump between them by absorbing or emitting a quantum of energy, like a photon, but they can't hang out in between those levels. Energy isn't a smooth ramp, it's a staircase.
Okay, staircase energy level. So wave particles, tunneling, superposition, spooky entanglement, quantized energy. A completely different rule book. How did anyone start thinking this applied to, biology?
Well, the ideas go back surprisingly far. Pascal Jordan, one of the founders of quantum mechanics, actually wrote a paper back in 1932, often seen as the first paper on quantum biology.
Really? What did Jordan suggest?
He had this idea he called amplification theory. He figured, okay, in non-living stuff, you have billions of molecules, and random quantum effects just average out. But maybe, he thought, in a living cell, there are a few key steering molecules.
Steering molecules?
Yeah, like a control center. And maybe a tiny quantum event, like a single molecule changing state due to quantum uncertainty, could happen in one of these steering molecules and then get amplified, affecting the whole organism. Like one small quantum change triggering a big biological response.
So amplifying the quantum weirdness up to the macro level? Interesting.
It was a radical idea for the time. Later, of course, his history gets complicated with his Nazi affiliations, which is important to acknowledge. But that initial scientific idea was quite pioneering.
And then Schrödinger of cat fame also weighed in.
He did. In his famous 1944 book, What is Life? Schrödinger came at it from a different angle. He was struck by how incredibly orderly life is, especially how genes pass information so faithfully across generations.
Right, the stability of inheritance.
Exactly. He argued that this order couldn't just come from classical statistics, which work well for big average systems like gases. He thought life must rely on the precise structure of molecules at a level where quantum effects are dominant. He suggested that the gene molecule itself must be in a periodic crystal, storing information in its quantum structure.
So life's order comes from quantum-level precision, unlike inanimate matter governed by averages.
That was his argument, that life operates down at a scale where quantum rules are essential, not just statistical averages. It needs that quantum stability and structure.
Okay, so these pioneers laid some groundwork. Let's get into specifics now. Where might we be seeing these quantum effects in action in biology? You mentioned enzymes.
Right, enzymes. They're life's catalysts, speeding up biochemical reactions, sometimes by incredible factors. Classically, we think of them as locks and keys, fitting substrates perfectly to lower the energy barrier for a reaction.
The activation energy barrier.
Precisely. But there's growing evidence that some enzymes might use quantum tunneling to get substrates across that barrier even more efficiently.
Tunneling again, so particles just zip through the energy hill instead of climbing over.
Exactly. Especially light particles like electrons or even protons. If the enzyme can facilitate that tunneling, the reaction can happen much faster, or maybe happen at temperatures where it classically shouldn't.
How do they test for that?
One way is using the kinetic isotope effect. You replace an atom involved in the reaction, say a hydrogen atom, with its heavier isotope deuterium.
Deuterium has an extra neutron, so it's heavier.
Right. Classically, making that heavier atom move should slow the reaction down quite significantly. But if the particle is quantum tunneling, its mass matters much less. So if you swap hydrogen for deuterium and the reaction rate doesn't slow down as much as classical chemistry predicts, it's a strong hint that tunneling is involved.
Ah, I see. Less impact from the heavier isotope suggests tunneling. And you mentioned fruit flies and smell. How does that connect?
Well, this is a bit more debated, but Lukatern proposed a vibrational theory of smell. The standard idea is that smell receptors recognize molecule shakes, like locks and keys.
Shape determines smell.
Turin suggested it might also involve the vibrations of the chemical bonds within the odor molecule. He theorized that electrons might tunnel across the receptor, assisted by these vibrations, and that's what triggers the smell signal.
Electrons tunneling based on molecular vibration.
Yeah, and experiments showed fruit flies could tell the difference between a normal odorant and one where hydrogen was replaced by deuterium. The shape is almost identical, but the vibrational frequencies are different because deuterium is heavier.
So the flies could smell the difference in vibration.
That's the interpretation. It's intriguing evidence, though not fully accepted by everyone, that quantum affects molecular vibrations, maybe electron tunneling, could be part of how we, or at least flies, smell. We might literally be sensing the quantum jiggle of molecules.
Smelling quantum vibrations. That's pretty wild. Okay, what about photosynthesis? Plants are incredibly good at capturing light.
Astonishingly good. Near perfect efficiency in that first step of capturing a photon and getting its energy to where it needs to go.
How do they do it?
It involves these networks of pigment molecules, like chlorophyll, in light harvesting complexes. When a photon hits, it creates an energy packet, an exciton. This exciton then has to travel through the network to reach the reaction center, where the energy is converted to chemical form.
And it has to get there fast, without losing energy as heat.
Exactly. And what experiments found, starting in the early 2000s, was evidence for quantum coherence during this energy transfer. They saw these things called quantum beats.
Quantum beats, like a drum beat?
Sort of. It's an oscillation, a wave-like interference pattern in the energy flow. It suggests the exciton isn't just randomly hopping from molecule to molecule. Instead, it's acting like a wave, spreading out, exploring multiple paths simultaneously through superposition.
Exploring all paths at once.
Kind of, yeah. This quantum coherence allows it to very quickly find the most efficient path to the reaction center, minimizing energy loss. It's like a quantum search algorithm built into the plant.
Wow. But wait, how does this delicate quantum wave behavior survive in that hot, wet, messy cell? I thought coherence was super fragile.
That is the million-dollar question. It's exactly what makes building quantum computers so hard. You need extreme cold and isolation.
So how does a plant do it at room temperature?
We don't fully know, but one really cool idea is that the messiness itself, the vibrations of the protein structure around the pigments, might actually help maintain the coherence.
The vibrations help, not destroy it?
It's counterintuitive, right? But the idea is that the exciton and the vibrations might couple together, sort of dancing to the same beat in a way that protects the quantum state from random noise. Life might be using the noise constructively.
Life dancing with quantum noise to protect coherence. That's beautiful, actually. Okay, let's switch gears to navigation. Birds, like the European robin, using the Earth's magnetic field. How on earth could quantum mechanics be involved there?
This is another amazing story. The leading theory is called the radical pair mechanism, proposed by Klaus Schulten, and it involves entanglement again.
Entanglement in a bird's eye. Seriously.
Seems like it. The idea is that light hits a specific protein in the robin's retina called cryptochrome. This light absorption creates a pair of molecules, each with an unpaired electron. These are called radicals. And crucially, the spins of these two electrons become entangled.
Okay, entangled electron spins created by light in the eye. Then what?
These entangled electrons are in a superposition of spin states. Now, the key thing is how this pair flips between different total spin states, specifically between a singlet state, spins opposite, and a triplet state, spins parallel. The rate of this flipping is extremely sensitive to the direction of external magnetic fields.
Even the Earth's really weak magnetic field.
Yes, even that weak field. So as the bird changes its orientation relative to the Earth's magnetic field lines, the angle affects how quickly the entangled electron pair flips between singlet and triplet states.
Okay. The magnetic field changes the spin dynamics. How does that become a compass?
The singlet and triplet states lead to slightly different chemical products when the radical pair eventually reacts further. So the amount of each chemical product depends on the bird's alignment with the magnetic field.
Different chemical signals depending on direction.
That's the idea. These different chemical signals are then somehow relayed to the bird's brain. The exact mechanism there is still fuzzy, giving it information about direction. It's essentially a chemical compass powered by quantum spin dynamics.
A quantum chemical compass.
And there's evidence. Experiments show that if you shine specific colors of light or apply weak oscillating magnetic fields designed to disrupt electron spins, you can mess up the bird's navigation. It strongly suggests this radical pair mechanism is involved.
Incredible. Life is really finding ways to use this stuff. What about origins of life or evolution? Any quantum hints there?
Well, think about DNA and the stability of the genetic code. It relies on hydrogen bonds holding the base pairs together, specifically involving protons.
And protons can tunnel.
They can indeed. It's been proposed that a proton could quantum tunnel within a DNA base, briefly changing its structure. This is called a tautomeric shift. If this happens just as DNA is replicating, the altered base might pair up incorrectly, leading to a mutation.
So quantum tunneling could be a source of genetic mutations, a fundamental driver of evolution.
Potentially, yes. A source of the random variation that natural selection acts upon. It connects quantum randomness directly to biological evolution.
Wow. And what about those controversial adaptive mutations? Did quantum ideas pop up there?
That was John Cairns's work suggesting bacteria under stress might somehow direct mutations to be beneficial. It's still highly debated. But some people did speculate, very speculatively, about quantum measurement. Could the act of the cell reading its DNA under stress somehow influence the probability of certain quantum events, like proton tunneling leading to specific mutations?
Quantum measurement influencing mutation outcomes.
Again, highly speculative. The mainstream view is still random mutation plus selection. But it shows people were thinking about whether quantum effects could play an even more active role in evolution.
Right. Okay, let's go to the really deep end now. Consciousness. Probably the biggest mystery. Any quantum connection proposed there?
This is definitely the most speculative area, almost philosophical in some ways. Classical neuroscience, neurons firing, chemistry. It explains a lot, but it struggles with subjective experience itself, the hard problem of consciousness. Why does it feel like something to be us?
And the binding problem, how all the sensory info comes together into one experience.
Exactly. And free will in a deterministic universe. So some thinkers wonder if quantum mechanics, with its inherent uncertainty and weird connections, might offer clues.
Like the Penrose-Hameroff theory.
Right. That's probably the most famous one. Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff proposed that quantum computations happen inside microtubules, tiny protein tubes within neurons, and consciousness emerges from a specific type of quantum wave function collapse orchestrated within these microtubules.
Quantum computers in our brain cells.
That's the basic idea, but it faces huge challenges.
The decoherence problem again. The brain being too warm and noisy.
Precisely. How could those delicate quantum states possibly survive long enough in microtubules to do any useful computation related to consciousness? It's a major, major hurdle, and many neuroscientists are very skeptical.
Makes sense. Are there other ideas?
Some look at the brain's overall electromagnetic field. Could that field itself support some kind of quantum coherence or quantum information processing? It avoids the single neuron problem, maybe helps with binding. But again, it's very theoretical, very early days, lots of debate.
So quantum consciousness is still way out there on the fringes, but it shows how people are grappling with these deep mysteries using all the tools physics offers. Looking ahead then, what's the future hold? If life really does use quantum tricks, what can we learn or build?
Oh, the potential is huge. Just understanding photosynthesis better, how plants manage that quantum coherence, could lead to designing way more efficient solar cells, right? Mimicking nature's quantum strategies.
Bio-inspired quantum solar power. That would be amazing.
Totally. Or think about synthetic biology. If we're trying to engineer new life forms or biological machines, understanding the quantum rules they might be using or could use seems pretty essential. Maybe we could even build artificial protocells that deliberately harness quantum noise, like plants might do.
Building life that's intentionally quantum-powered.
It opens up incredible possibilities. It's just so exciting to realize that this quantum weirdness isn't just confined to physics labs. It might be happening inside us, inside every living thing all the time.
So wrapping this up, the big takeaway seems to be that the quantum world isn't separate from life. It might be woven right into its fabric.
Exactly. From birds navigating to plants photosynthesizing, maybe even the origin of mutations, potentially consciousness. Quantum mechanics might be a fundamental biological toolkit.
It definitely paints a picture of life as being, well, much weirder, much more deeply connected to the fundamental rules of reality, and maybe much smarter than we ever thought, using quantum tricks to thrive.
Absolutely. And it's a fast-moving field. We're constantly learning more, asking new questions. It forces us to rethink what life is capable of, how it works at its deepest levels.
It's a perspective shift. So the final thought to leave everyone with, is life fundamentally quantum? Is it exploiting the strangest bits of physics to perform its miracles, making it far more bizarre and ingenious than we imagined?
Something to ponder, definitely. It suggests the universe within us might be just as strange and wonderful as the universe outside.